After the car accident, I pretended to have amnesia to tease my husband and son. Who are you? My son's eyes lit up mischievously as he pulled a woman standing outside the hospital room inside. He said to me, "Auntie, my parents and I are just here to visit." Meanwhile, my husband stood silently by, allowing our son to address me as Auntie. "Auntie, my parents and I are just here to visit," echoed sweetly in the room in my son's tender voice. With my head wrapped in bandages, I looked down at my 5-year-old son, Andy, holding hands with both the woman and my husband, his face full of sly delight. Chris, my husband, dressed in a sharp suit, made no effort to correct him. Instead, he gazed at me with a look of scrutiny. The woman Andy was holding wore a long white dress, exuding a gentle and elegant aura, but now she seemed nervous, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear under my gaze. Noticing my stare, Andy quickly moved in front of her protectively. If I really had lost my memory, I would have believed that the three of them standing in front of me were a happy family. Andy tugged on Chris's hand and whispered, "Dad, now that Mom's lost her memory, does this mean you two can finally get divorced?" Though he spoke in a low voice, he made sure I could hear every word. I knew his little trick, he was punishing me. Yesterday, I scolded him, embarrassing him in front of the staff. Now, he was angry. This was Andy's usual mischief, he took pleasure in punishing me. But I was tired of playing his games. Since I said I had amnesia, I might as well continue the act. Pretend I don't have a son. Pretend I don't have a husband. "Who are you all again?" I asked, feigning confusion. Andy was startled, a flicker of panic crossing his face. "You really don't remember me? You can't possibly forget me. I'm your favorite, kid." Chris frowned, his cold eyes narrowing with impatience. "Joyce, stop pretending. The doctor said it's just a mild concussion, nothing serious. Don't think you can use amnesia to avoid the divorce. Yeah, stop pretending. You love us so much, how could you forget us?" Andy added, his expression as stern as Chris's. I could feel a headache coming on. Before I could respond, a nurse knocked on the door. "The patient needs rest. Everyone who doesn't need to be here, please leave." Without a word, Chris and Andy took Ella with them and left. The nurse entered the room and said, "Your husband just left to buy you some porridge." My husband? I was confused. Hadn't he just been kicked out by her? The nurse blinked. "Yes, I remember you both from 4 years ago. I used to work in the maternity ward and saw you many times. You two were such a striking couple, hard to forget. 4 years ago, I did have my checkups at this hospital, but Chris never once came with me." The nurse continued, "Your husband was one of the few who never touched his phone during the appointments. He waited anxiously outside the entire time you were being examined. Tall, handsome, and so attentive. He gave us all hope that true love still existed. Oh, by the way, who were those two just now? They looked striking, but their faces were so dark, they looked like debt collectors." I couldn't help but laugh. Chris had never come to any of my 14 prenatal checkups. The one who accompanied me was Devin, my younger brother by 5 years. Our family had adopted him when he was 18. I didn't explain the situation between Chris, Andy, and me. After all, soon we'd be nothing to each other. Soon, Devin came in, slightly out of breath, carrying a food box. I was starving, I hadn't eaten all day, and my stomach was beginning to hurt. Devin quickly set everything up on the table, porridge, spoon, napkins, and a cup of water, all neatly arranged. "This is warm water, and here's your favorite century egg and lean pork congee. You start eating, I'll peel the eggs for you." I accepted his care, without hesitation. Since the day I met Devin when he was brought home by Grandpa when I was 15, he had always been my most loyal companion. After a few bites of porridge, my stomach pain began to ease. Looking up, I noticed Devin's eyes were red. "You have no idea how scared I was when I heard about your accident," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. I felt a sharp sting of emotion rise to my nose. Who wouldn't be afraid of a car accident? I was just lucky the injuries weren't severe. I only pretended to have amnesia to tease Chris and Andy, thinking it would be funny. But how could people who don't care about you worry? A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital. I insisted to the doctors that I remembered everything except for Chris and Andy. The doctor informed Chris that my amnesia was due to the concussion and that I'd gradually remember everything. I returned to Chris's house. From the living room, I could hear the beautiful sound of a piano. Ella and Andy were playing a duet. When they finished, Ella smiled and praised him. "You're such a talented little pianist." Andy blushed and replied shyly, "It's only because you're such a great teacher." It was a picture of motherly warmth and filial piety. Expressionless, I headed upstairs. The moment Andy saw me, his smile disappeared. Ella quickly stood up. "Madam, how are you feeling?" Standing on the stairs, I nodded at her. "I'm much better now. Please, go ahead and continue." I didn't dislike Ella, I was just jealous of her. Ella wasn't a third party in our marriage. She was Chris's first love, someone he could never forget. Even though Chris and I were married, the saying is true, the one who isn't loved is the third party. I first saw Chris in all his youthful glory when he was 18, and it was then that he fell for someone, Ella. Last month, her family's business declared bankruptcy, forcing her to return to the country. She had poured all her savings into trying to save her family's company, but with her music degree, it was hard for her to find a high-paying job here. Chris found her and hired her as Andy's piano teacher, paying her 600,000 yuan a month. New mom is the best. I love my new mom the most. Andy loudly announced from the living room. "Master, I'm not, please don't call me that," Ella said awkwardly, looking at Andy. Andy, dissatisfied with how she addressed him, clung to her leg affectionately. "If you call me master again, I'll be mad. You have to call me Andy. You're way nicer than my mom. I like you best." He glanced upstairs, noticing I hadn't come down yet, and continued, "Why don't you move in with us? I want to see you every morning when I wake up." Dad already agreed. "Why won't you stay? Our house is so fancy, you can have anything you want." Chris had indeed suggested that Ella move in with us. There were plenty of rooms, and it would be more convenient for her. Plus, she was broke. But Ella insisted on renting her own place and turned down his offer. "Andy, you should keep practicing your piano pieces," she gently urged him. Andy shook his head, determined not to stop until she agreed to live with us. "Are you scared of my mom?" "Don't worry, Dad and I will protect you. She listens to everything Dad says and won't do anything to you." Andy was smart, he knew exactly how to hit my sore spots. I calmly put on my pearl earrings and finally made my way downstairs. When Ella saw me, she seemed troubled. "Madam, It's fine, Ella. You can stay here. I know your commute takes 3 hours every day." I took the shoes the maid handed me. "You don't need to feel guilty. I'm glad you're back." Andy was stunned, clearly caught off guard. In the past, whenever Dad drunkenly mumbled Ella's name, Mom's eyes would fill with tears. Yes, this wasn't the first time Andy had met Ella. Last month, he had secretly found the woman's photo that his dad had kept hidden in a drawer, along with the names of other women Chris would mutter in his sleep. He thought he had found the perfect way to punish me. But it seemed his weapon had lost its power. "I want ice cream." "Bring me 2. "No, 10. But all he got in response was the sound of me closing the front door. After being bedridden for days, I was finally out and needed to visit the beauty salon for some skin care. The driver was already waiting outside. Meanwhile, inside, Andy's face had darkened. "Master, here's your ice cream," a maid said, pulling it out of the freezer. "Who said I wanted it?" He threw the ice cream onto the floor, staring intently at the closed door. Could his mom really have forgotten about him? Chris's mother had heard that Ella had returned and was now Andy's piano teacher. She came over, bringing several bags of luxury goods. On the sofa, an elegant and regal woman gently held Ella's hand. "My dear child, you've truly suffered. Just imagine, if you and Chris had been together from the start, with his help managing your family's business, how could your family have gone bankrupt?" Ella looked a bit anxious. "Please don't say that. What's done is done. I'm already grateful that Mr. Chris is willing to offer me a job now. There's no harm in saying it. Now that Andy is in your hands, I feel completely at ease." Chris's mother patted her hand approvingly. She then lowered her voice. "Chris is getting a divorce, you know that, right? As soon as you came back, he started the divorce process. Doesn't that tell you something?" Don't worry, even Andy likes you. You won't be mistreated in our family, and Chris will help your family recover too. Chris's mother hadn't informed me about her visit, even though she knew I was home. I wisely chose not to interrupt their reunion. Not only did Chris and Andy like Ella, but Chris's mother also had a deep affection for her. Even before I married Chris, she had hoped Ella would become her daughter-in-law. Ella came from an academic family, and her family was a good match for the Pays. When Chris fell for Ella at first sight, Chris's mother was ecstatic, immediately envisioning a union between the two families. Unfortunately, Ella didn't reciprocate Chris's feelings. She decisively rejected his confession and went abroad to continue her music studies. Though disappointed, Chris's mother admired Ella even more, seeing her as a woman with ambition and purpose. As for me, I came from a modest background, driven by vanity and a desire for wealth, and I was willing to do anything to marry Chris. It was clear that Chris's mother looked down on me, perhaps even despised me, though her good manners kept her from showing it outright. Sometimes, I wondered if it would have been a happier outcome if Ella had married Chris from the beginning. My phone buzzed. I looked down to see a message: compensation from the car accident had come through. I thought the trauma of that day would fade, but when I close my eyes, it all feels like it happened yesterday. It was pouring rain that day, and Chris and I were driving on the highway. He got a phone call, and I could hear the voice on the other end clearly. "Boss, a group of debt collectors is causing trouble at Ella's place." Chris glanced at me. I knew he wasn't asking for my opinion, he was informing me that he was going to help Ella. Her home was in the opposite direction. "Drop me off at the next rest stop," I said quietly. "I'll get a taxi back." As soon as I got out, despite opening my umbrella quickly, I was still soaked. The black Bentley sped off, splashing water all over me, while the old cab I took skidded on the highway. The moment the car spun out of control, my whole body went numb. I fastened my seatbelt as my heart pounded, and my mind went blank. There was a loud crash. My head slammed into the car window. Time seemed to slow down. In that brief moment, my life flashed before my eyes, all of it centered around Chris. At 10, my parents took out a loan to buy a house in an exclusive neighborhood, and I met Chris. They told me I had to be on my best behavior and win his favor. Chris was good-looking, and I enjoyed spending time with him, following him around for 7 years. At 17, I realized I liked Chris, but he despised me. For a year, I adored him while his friends called me names, and people around us treated me like a clown. At 18, Chris fell for Ella, and I watched as he revolved around her, then saw him heartbroken when she rejected him. At 21, Chris got drunk, kissed me, and called Ella's name over and over. I should have pushed him away and slapped him, but I couldn't. My father's company was in financial trouble and needed a large sum of money. Marrying Chris had been my parents' dream for years, and now, it had become mine too. I silently endured. However long Chris tormented me, he called out for Ella just as long. Word of our situation quickly reached his grandfather, who, adhering to traditional values, demanded Chris marry me. I got what I wanted, a marriage to Chris. At 22, I became pregnant. The baby was difficult, my pregnancy symptoms severe, and the delivery almost killed me. Memories are a tangled web of pain. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed. I was in agony, my head pounding. At 27, I watched my son call Ella Mom, and my husband did nothing to correct him. I pretended not to care, but each moment pierced me. The people I couldn't bear to lose were waiting for me to disappear. I stayed silent, realizing happiness might never have been mine to claim. Do you ever lash out at the ones you love? I wanted to ask Chris and Andy, but when I saw how they were with Ella, I knew the answer. Chris fell in love with Ella at first sight, and so did Andy. This was the first time Andy had ever shown affection towards someone else. People cling to their first loves. Andy was becoming more like his father, not just in appearance, but in personality and preferences. They both liked Ella. I never saw Ella as a third party because, from that night on, I had stolen what belonged to her. People suffer because they chase after the wrong things. I think this marriage has reached its end. It's time to give Chris and Andy back to Ella. Chris had already drafted divorce papers the day Ella came back, hoping to pursue her again. As he wished, I informed the Pay family lawyer and met him at Chris's office. I agree to the divorce, I said calmly. Chris seemed surprised. The lawyer handed each of us a divorce agreement. I quickly signed my name. When it was Chris's turn to sign, his hand hesitated, the tips of his fingers white from gripping the pen too tightly. Boss, you can take some time to reconsider, the lawyer suggested, hesitantly. I understood how Chris felt. Even a pet would stir emotions after being with someone for a long time, and I had followed him for 16 years. Andy stays with me, Chris said, watching me closely, testing my reaction. I nodded. I didn't want either of them. Chris stared at me deeply, searching for any trace of sadness, regret, or reluctance on my face. But there was none. He clenched the pen, almost in anger, and signed his name. I calmly reviewed the property settlement, satisfied, then left his office. In the now empty office, the lawyer trembled slightly, sensing the icy aura Chris exuded. Boss, should we make the divorce public? No, she's just throwing a tantrum, Chris said, as if reassuring himself. His frown even relaxed slightly. Don't leak this. She'll come back on her own. She's only lost her memory. She forgot about Andy and me, but it's temporary. She loves us both deeply. Once she remembers, she'll come running back to beg for my forgiveness. This divorce is just a punishment for her forgetfulness. When she comes back crying and apologizing, I'll forgive her, and we'll get remarried. Feeling comforted by his own words, Chris took a sip of coffee. The lawyer wiped the sweat from his brow. Divorce papers signed, property divided, was she really just throwing a tantrum? As I was about to leave the house for the last time, I expected to feel sadness, having lived here for 6 years. But instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief, as if shackles had been removed. I was no longer someone's wife or someone's mother. There was no need to please anyone or fear their rejection. While neither Chris nor Andy was home, I called for 3 moving trucks and spent a considerable amount hiring 3 moving companies. I packed every luxury item, bag, piece of jewelry, and clothing that belonged to me, along with all my baking tools, a cupboard full of fine china, and some of the furniture and decor I'd bought. I even packed up the gifts I had bought for Chris and Andy, things they never liked, which sat forgotten in the corners of cupboards. Since they didn't care about them, I might as well sell them secondhand and get some value out of them. There were so many things to pack, but with 3 companies working, everything was loaded in under 2 hours. The house suddenly looked clean and empty. Chris would probably be pleased to see how tidy it was when he got back, since he never liked the house to be cluttered. Now, it was finally the way he liked it. I had thoughtfully left enough space for the new woman who would soon take over. Before stepping out of the yard, I took one last look at the villa. I would never come back again. Lola, the housekeeper, stood at the gate, wiping her tears. "Ma'am, are you really leaving?" Lola had been here since I first moved in. She treated me like her daughter, showing me such care and concern. I thought, perhaps she was the only one here who would shed real tears over my departure. I held Lola's hands and gave her a gentle smile. "You should be congratulating me. This is a good thing for me." Chris handled everything efficiently, quickly transferring the assets. I used the leftover balance in my account to buy a 200 square meter flat that I'd had my eye on since last month. The previous owner had emigrated, leaving behind a beautifully renovated French-style apartment. I fell in love with it at first sight, and the best part was, I didn't have to do any remodeling, I could move in immediately. I quickly signed the contract and arranged for movers to bring my things over. I had already hired a few professional organizers, and within half a day, everything was neatly sorted. Money well spent. I lounged comfortably on a recliner by the floor-to-ceiling windows, taking in the view. Finally, my life was starting over. Devin showed up soon after, carrying bags upon bags of things. He was the first person I told about the divorce. It had become second nature to share everything with him over the years. He was always on my side, no matter what. "Why'd you bring so much stuff?" I asked, eyeing the bags he was carrying. "I figured the first meal in your new home should be homemade," he replied, placing everything neatly into the fridge. "I bought fruits and milk. It's cold now, so take them out a bit before eating. Also," I was about to tease him for fussing over small things when I noticed one of the boxes on the floor shaking violently, startling me. "Devin, that box is moving." Devin chuckled. "That's your gift." Come over and open it. I hesitated for a second, but then I heard a faint meow. My eyes lit up as I quickly rushed over. Carefully opening the box, I found a kitten inside. It rubbed against my legs affectionately, melting my heart. I had never considered getting a cat because Chris was a clean freak, but Devin was the only one who knew how much I loved them. I squealed in delight, hugging the kitten. Devin, you know me too well. I played with the kitten for a while before naming it Cotton Candy. Devin, meanwhile, was busy preparing dinner. He handed me a piece of sweet and sour pork. Are you sure you'll be okay spending the night alone? I could tell he was worried. Maybe he thought I'd still be upset about Chris. Don't worry about me. I'm the one who asked for the divorce. I've moved on. The car accident must have jolted my senses back into place, I said, grinning. Devin studied my face and, seeing I wasn't pretending, finally smiled. I'm glad you've come to terms with it. Chris never deserved you. Now that you're divorced, have you thought about coming back to the company? Before I got pregnant, I had been helping my father manage the company. Afterward, my father handed the reins over to an 18-year-old Devin, who was still on summer vacation at the time. The shareholders were skeptical, but in just 2 months, Devin had tripled the company's revenue. He balanced school and the business, quickly becoming one of the most promising young talents in the industry. I had considered returning to work, but I hadn't been in the business world for 5 years. Devin set down his chopsticks and looked at me. You'll get back into it quickly. Don't you remember how you used to shine in the corporate world? My heart raced. I still remembered the joy of signing my first big deal. I nodded, agreeing to return to the company. A few days later, it was my father's birthday. Devin and I went home together, and I nervously told my parents, I got a divorce. My father's face darkened, and he raised his hand to strike me, but Devin shouted, Dad. My mother rushed over, shielding me and hugging me tightly. What are you doing? We've already ruined the first half of her life. She's an adult now. Let her make her own decisions and give her life back to her, she cried, her voice choked with emotion. Tears welled up in my eyes as I clung to my mother, sobbing. My father's eyes reddened, and he slapped himself hard. It's my fault. I knew Chris's family was a snake pit, and yet I still pushed you into it. I have no right to blame you. My mother led me to the sofa. Joyce, if you want a divorce, go ahead. We've seen everything these past years. She glanced at Devin. Why don't you move in with her and take care of her, Devin? I didn't want to bother him. After all, I was an adult and could take care of myself. I'll be fine on my own. You? The way you cook, you should be thankful you haven't poisoned yourself yet, my mother scoffed. I chuckled sheepishly. I loved cooking and experimenting with recipes, but according to Chris and Andy, I made evil creations. Fortunately, Devin enjoyed my cooking, so I'd kept at it all these years. Devin, however, looked worried. Joyce, you've never lived alone before, and there's a lot you'll need help with at the company. He had a point. I wasn't fond of my own cooking, and I couldn't rely on takeout forever. Plus, there was the kitten, Cotton Candy, to take care of. Devin could help with that too. I agreed, and Devin sighed in relief while my mother smiled. Who else but Devin would treat you like a child, she teased. I protested silently. In my eyes, Devin was still the kid. Though busy with work, I hadn't felt this fulfilled in a long time. It was like leveling up in a game, and I was full of energy. I even stayed late at the office a few nights. When I got home one evening, Devin was waiting for me with dinner ready. For the first time, I had someone at home, waiting for me, not the other way around. I couldn't help but smile as I walked into the living room, where I found Devin asleep on the recliner. As I approached with a blanket, I stopped in my tracks. Devin was sprawled on a single recliner, which usually had plenty of room for me. But on him, it looked too small, with his long legs dangling over the edge. Devin had grown up. I'd never thought about him that way before, but now I couldn't help but notice how good he looked. My gaze lingered on his chest. His skin was so smooth and fair, with muscles that were clearly defined. He must work out, I thought, noticing a hint of pink peeking out from his robe. Just looking at him made me feel warm. I wondered how soft his skin would feel under my fingers, or how it might flush if I touched it. Before I could stop myself, my mind was already wandering to less innocent places, and my face flushed. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I must have had too much to drink. As I bent over to cover him with the blanket, I accidentally locked eyes with him. I stumbled in surprise and fell right onto his chest, my face buried against the warm skin I had just been staring at. I blushed furiously, trying to get up, but the unsteady recliner sent me tumbling back down onto Devon's chest again. This isn't what it looks like, I thought frantically. Devon's large hand steadied me by the waist as he sat up and stabilized the chair. "Joyce, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice husky from sleep. Embarrassed, I held up the blanket to cover my face. "I just wanted to give you a blanket." He chuckled softly, the vibrations rumbling through his chest. Only then did I realize I was still sitting on his lap. Mortified, I threw the blanket over his head, scrambled off him, and rushed back to my room. The next few days, I got the hang of things at work, and I felt lighter, humming songs as I walked around. But in the parking lot, I spotted Chris's car, and my mood soured instantly. I started counting down the days until I could finalize the divorce. Andy was waiting at the elevator. "Dad sent me to talk to you," he said, still sulking. "He wants me to apologize for calling Ella Mom. It was just a prank." "Who knew you'd really lose your memory?" "It's fine," I said softly. Andy glanced at me, hope flickering in his eyes. But I continued, "Your father and I are getting a divorce. You can call whoever you want Mom now. Ella will be your new mom soon, and she's great. You like her, don't you? You'll be happy together." He followed me all the way to my apartment door, clearly not wanting to leave. "Anything else? If not, I'm closing the door." Andy stared at me in disbelief. "I've already apologized. And you still won't forgive me? You'll regret this. When you remember everything, you'll be begging me for forgiveness. Even if you kneel, I won't forgive you." The first time Andy said something like that, I cried alone in my room, questioning if I was a bad mother. But now, I felt nothing. Whatever bond we had was broken the moment he called someone else Mom. Sometimes I suspected Devon was flirting with me, but I couldn't prove it. Like now, for example, when he was casually making me coffee in a simple white t-shirt and gray pants. He looked like a college student. Well, he had just graduated from college. Ah, the vibrancy of youth. I lay on the sofa, feeling sentimental. Look at those hips, that waist. Absolutely pleasing to the eye. It's no wonder wealthy women love to keep male models around. Devon walked over with a cup of coffee, and I immediately put on a serious face, pretending to read a magazine. I took the coffee from him and had a sip. Just as Devon sat down, Cotton Candy, my cat, jumped onto his lap, curling up comfortably. My eyes were drawn to the sight of Cotton kneading his gray pants. Wait, gray pants? My gaze involuntarily focused on a particular area. Devon leaned close to my ear, his breath tickling me. "Joyce, what are you looking at?" My ears tingled, and my breath hitched. My eyes darted around. I was saying the cat has grown a lot. Blushing furiously, I bolted to my room and sent a message to my best friend. "Devon's been staying with me, and I feel like he's seducing me every day. Should I find a man already?" My best friend excitedly called me right away. "You finally opened your eyes. That handsome guy's been into you for years, and you're only realizing it now?" My heart was a mess. "He likes me? I always thought he saw me as an older sister." I clutched my chest, unsure why a small thrill stirred within me. "Of course he likes you. It's obvious. He acts all sweet and innocent around you, but outside, he's as cold as a wolf, terrifying everyone around him." She continued, "Now that you're divorced, why not give Devon a chance? He's way better than that scumbag. My mind's a mess right now, and I've got enough on my plate with work. I can't deal with anything else." I hastily ended the call with my friend, only for another one to come through immediately. It was Chris. "Joyce, Andy has a fever. He's been asking for you. Can you come home to see him?" His voice carried an uncharacteristic plea. I walked to the balcony, letting the wind brush past me as I spoke softly. "Chris, I've made that kind of call to you countless times. It was my first time being a mother, and every time Andy got sick, I panicked, not knowing what to do. Even though we had a family doctor, I still found myself trembling as I called Chris, voice shaking with tears, begging him to come home. And what was his response back then? His cold words still echoed in my ears. "You can't even take care of yourself, let alone Andy." "Joyce, His voice was hoarse. "You were right, Chris. That's why now, I just want to take care of myself." "Joyce, have you regained your memory?" His tone was cautious, as I'd never heard before. "I never lost my memory. See you at the civil office in a month. Don't think that if I regain my memory, I'll come running back to you." I spoke slowly, deliberately. "It's over between us." There was a sound like a glass cup shattering on the other end. Before he could respond, I hung up and blocked his number. I'd contact him again in a month for the legal procedures. Since then, I've frequently seen Chris around, just sitting in his car, watching me from a distance, never disrupting my life. Maybe it's because he can't accept it. Maybe it's that twisted male instinct, where only the unattainable seems desirable. But now, when I see Chris, I just treat him like a passing stranger. It's Sunday today, and as soon as I opened the door, Andy arrived with a big photo album. Without hesitation, he squeezed through the door crack and sat on the sofa, completely forgetting how the last time he was here, he demanded I kneel to beg his forgiveness. Andy opened the album and pulled me over. "Mom, look, here's a photo of me when I was still in your belly. And this one is right after I was born. Cute, right? Grandma said I was the cutest baby in the whole hospital." He was trying to awaken my maternal instincts. But as I looked at the pictures, all I felt was pity for my past self. The woman in the photos was gaunt, her belly swollen, ravaged by pregnancy. I'd been tormented by morning sickness, throwing up everything I ate. I looked frail and exhausted, my hair dry and lifeless, and Andy was especially restless, constantly kicking me in the middle of the night. Staring at the pictures, I couldn't help but think aloud, so selfish. "Mom, what did you say?" Andy asked, confused. "The me in those photos is weak and haggard from pregnancy, yet your only focus is on yourself. You have no idea how much I went through to bring you into this world." Andy wouldn't understand my sacrifices, just like his father. They were both refined egotists. I closed the album. "Go home. These photos only bring back painful memories for me." Andy threw a fit, refusing to leave, but the housekeeper eventually let him out. Not long after, Andy returned, even more persistent, this time bringing a ceramic plate. "Mom, look, you made this plate for me yourself. You said you spent the whole day on it." "Oh? Then why is it broken?" He mumbled something. But I already knew. He'd smashed it because he thought it was ugly and didn't want to take it to school, afraid it would embarrass him. The ceramic shards had cut my arm, leaving a faint scar that still remained. I never had much talent for art, and this plate was the best out of the dozen I'd made. In the end, Chris had bought him an artist's piece to take to school instead. I'd painstakingly glued this one back together, but no matter what, once something's cracked, it can never truly be whole again. This is a defective piece now. I tossed it into the trash, and it shattered instantly. "Since you have a new one, there's no need to keep this." Andy froze, staring at the broken plate. Then a hopeful look lit up his face. "Mom, did you regain your memory? Do you remember me?" I shook my head. "I never lost my memory. I just don't want to think about you or Chris anymore." I didn't intend to say much else to Andy and sent him out. He left, heartbroken. That evening, I had a business dinner. Devin found out and insisted on coming with me. He was worried I'd drink too much, but it ended up being him who had the lower tolerance. Neither of us could drive after drinking, and since we were close to home, I supported him as we walked back, using the cool night air to sober up. While he was drunk, I casually asked, "Devin, do you like me?" His dark eyes flickered, glowing for a moment as he silently stared at me. Then, abruptly, he turned away, blushing deeply as he nodded vigorously. My heart raced, so I changed the subject. "What kind of alcohol did you drink earlier?" He thought for a moment. "Brandy, I think." "Really?" "Lean down a bit." Obediently, he bent over, looking at me. His lips were soft and full, with a delicate lip shape. I leaned in and kissed him lightly. So soft, like brandy-infused marshmallows. I licked my lips, savoring the taste. Devon stood there, stunned and wide-eyed, still hazy from the alcohol. I acted nonchalant. It really was brandy. I kept walking, leaving a blushing Devon frozen in place. He quickly caught up, wrapping me in his arms, pressing me close to him. His head nestled into my neck like a happy child. He kept murmuring, "Joyce, I like you so much." When we got home, it seemed like Devon had sobered up. He pinned me against the door. "Joyce, can I kiss you?" When I nodded, his eyes lit up like a puppy spotting a treat, filled with fiery intensity. He kissed me all the way to the bed. At one point, he gently nipped my collarbone. Feeling me tremble, he stopped. He leaned close to my ear, his voice soft and wet. "Joyce, don't push me away anymore." In the darkness, I undid his belt. Meanwhile, at a gathering organized by Chris' friends, he drank in silence, until he overheard some gossip. Suddenly, with a loud crash, Chris flipped the table. "What did you say? Devon? That so-called adopted son? He's been into Joyce all this time?" His expression darkened instantly, voice chillingly cold. Chris was furious. Eyes bloodshot, he smashed all the bottles on the table. The room fell into a tense silence, everyone too scared to speak. Chris realized something important at that moment. Devon had never called Chris his brother-in-law, nor had he ever referred to Joyce as his sister. What a hypocrite. Chris immediately drove to Devon's company. As soon as he entered the office, he grabbed Devon by the collar and punched him. Through gritted teeth, Chris snarled, "I treated you like a brother-in-law, and you actually have feelings for your sister." Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Devon laughed disdainfully. "You? Fit to be my brother-in-law? Open your phone and look at our chat history." Though confused, Chris complied, scrolling through his messages with Devon. It didn't take long, Chris often reached out to Devon for help. The conversation history unfolded before his eyes, and Chris' face grew paler with every line he read. "Take your sister to the prenatal checkup. She's having severe morning sickness and refusing to eat. Can you come over? She's dealing with postpartum depression. If you have time, take her on a trip." "I can't. Joyce has a fever. She's throwing another tantrum and I don't have time to deal with her. Can you help? Joyce was in a car accident. Can you come and look after her?" Devon had replied instantly to each message. He never initiated contact, it was always Chris who reached out. Chris was now realizing that during their entire marriage, Devon had acted more like Joyce's husband. 14 prenatal appointments? It had always been Devon accompanying her. Every time Joyce was upset or hurting, Chris had sent Devon to take care of her. Devon had filled the role of a husband in Chris' absence, and only now did Chris understand the full extent of it. He'd always thought Joyce and her brother were just close, admiring their bond. Devon, the CEO of a listed company, would drop everything the moment Chris sent him a message about Joyce. Chris' hands trembled as he scrolled through the chat history. Devon, still seething, swung at Chris with another punch. This time, Chris didn't dodge. He stumbled back, bracing against the wall. Devon glared at him coldly. "Do you have any thoughts after reading all that? I've been wanting to hit you for a long time. Let me ask you, where were you when Joyce was in labor?" Without waiting for an answer, Devon provided it. "Your wife and child were at death's door, and you were watching Ella's concert abroad. And why did she get into that car accident? Because you left her on the highway for Ella. Where were you when she was sick and miserable? Did you ever stop to think she was your wife when you threw her aside time and time again?" Chris opened his mouth, but the words stuck in his throat, choked by the guilt and the undeniable truth of Devon's accusations. He wanted to argue, but the facts were irrefutable. It was as though an invisible hand was gripping his throat, leaving his mind blank. I arrived at Devon's office as soon as I heard Chris had come, furious. With security in tow, I rushed up to the top floor. "Chris! What are you doing?" I shouted the moment I stepped out of the elevator. Chris was holding Devon by the collar, his face contorted in anger. The security guards intervened to separate them, and I stood protectively in front of Devon. His lips were swollen, a stark contrast to his pale face. Tears welled up in his eyes. Seeing him like that, I tenderly touched his face. Is this how you were raised? I asked Chris, my voice calm but icy. Chris wavered, seeing the disdain in my eyes for the first time. Joyce, I'm hurt too, he mumbled weakly. I averted my gaze and led Devin away. Security, escort him out. Don't let unrelated people into the company again. Later, Chris sent Andy to find me, probably thinking he could use my motherly love for Andy to keep me from leaving. But I was no longer the person I used to be. Andy, you shouldn't come looking for me anymore. I divorced your dad. I'm not your mom anymore, I said. Andy panicked at the way I addressed him. Mom, Andy wants to eat your dark cooking. I want you to tell me a bedtime story and hold me while I sleep. Andy, anyone can do those things for you. You're just not used to me not being around, I replied, turning to leave. But Andy grabbed the hem of my skirt, his voice trembling with sobs. No, Mom. I'm really sorry. That day was just a prank. I don't even like Aunt Ella. I promise I won't do it again. Dad's a liar. He said you'd come back once you got your memory back, but you remember Andy, and you still don't want me. Laura told me how hard it was for you when you had me. I was a bad kid and always made you upset, he cried. I looked down at him. Andy, never wait until you've lost someone to learn how to cherish them. Andy's tears flowed as he clung to my leg. Mom, have I lost you? This is the last lesson I can teach you as your mother. Don't use hurtful words on the people who love you. You need to learn respect if you want to be respected in return. People leave when they're hurt, I explained softly. Andy sobbed uncontrollably, holding onto my skirt as he knelt on the ground. Mom, give me another chance. I promise I'll change my bad habits. I won't be like Dad. Please trust me, I'm your son, after all. I gently pulled him to his feet. Andy, it's already a fact that I've left your father. I'm never going back to that home. He wiped his tears. If you don't want Dad, then I won't want him either. If you won't come see me, can I at least come see you? I'll be good, I promise. That's your choice. Life has a way of teaching us hard lessons. No matter how much people try, some things can only be learned through experience. Only through heartbreak can one gain true understanding. I only hope that Andy can let go of his pride and prejudice, become a better person, and avoid following in his father's footsteps. Later, after securing a major deal with a client, I was about to drive home when I ran into Ella. She invited me for coffee. About last time in the hospital. I thought Andy was just testing you, to see if you had really lost your memory. I should have said something. I'm truly sorry, Ella said, lowering her head. I should never have gotten involved in your and Chris' life, nor should I have let money tempt me into becoming Andy's tutor. I shook my head. Ella, my divorce from Chris wasn't because of you. You don't need to feel guilty. I know you're not that kind of person. I owed Ella a favor. Back in high school, she had briefly joined our class. Her family was powerful, but she was always humble and kind, never letting her wealth define her. At 17, I was vain and desperate to fit into Chris' social circle, often the subject of their mockery. But Ella had never laughed at me. She once told me, when you focus on yourself, the universe will revolve around you. She had understood things much better than I had. I resigned from that job after you left, Ella continued. I realized I can't live off of others' pity forever. I need to stand on my own. To repay her for that old favor, I had done some investigating into her family's business, which had collapsed overnight. It wasn't just a matter of wealth, it was prestige, and the fall was suspicious. I'd found some questionable actions by her relatives abroad and passed the information to her. What she did with it was now up to her. Despite the troubles, Ella's family had a strong foundation. A camel, even dying, is still larger than a horse, as they say. There was still a good chance they could recover. Ella, grateful, smiled. She then brought up Chris. And what about you and Chris? I glanced out the window where Devin stood patiently in a gray coat, waiting for me. She smiled, genuinely. I wish you happiness. Chris wasn't worth it. Ella left, saying Chris had something to talk to me about. Chris wanted to reminisce about our past, but I stopped him. You can go back to the past, but no one's waiting for you there. He grabbed my hand, his voice cracking. Joyce, I'm certain now. The one I love is you, only you. I gently pulled my hand away, my voice steady. Love doesn't need to be confirmed. Only uncertain love needs constant reassurance. Chris, still desperate, pleaded, tomorrow is my birthday. Every year, you'd make me longevity noodles for it. I looked him in the eye. Chris, do you even know that last Sunday was my birthday? He paused, his face filled with regret after a few moments of thought. You see? The person you love the most is yourself. I'm sorry. I'll throw you the grandest birthday party to make up for it, he offered. I shook my head. It's not about the birthday anymore, Chris. You still don't understand. What's lost is lost. I've already booked an appointment at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Tomorrow, let's collect the divorce certificate. I learned how to love myself after leaving you, so please, don't interfere with my life anymore. I turned and ran towards Devon. He had been waiting for me in the cold wind for a long time. I wouldn't let him wait for me any longer. Chris Perspective, Epilogue. I only truly realized I had lost Joyce when I received the divorce certificate. Before that, even on the day we signed the divorce agreement, I was still arrogant. I was convinced that once Joyce regained her memory, we'd return to how things were. But I never expected that she had never lost her memory at all. Suddenly, I was overwhelmed with fear, as if something had quietly slipped away from my heart. People are always creatures of hindsight, only realizing the importance of something after they've lost it. I started scrolling through her old social media posts, reviewing the daily updates she used to share with me. As I read through our old messages, I couldn't help but smile. It turns out her messages had always been so vivid and engaging. But in most of our conversations, it was just her sending long, detailed messages. I rarely replied and often didn't even read them. Over time, she stopped sending me updates. She stopped initiating contact altogether. A person's desire to share doesn't disappear, it just shifts. She started sharing her daily life with Devon instead. Without me noticing, Devon had woven himself seamlessly into Joyce's life. And I didn't even care. I assumed they were just close as siblings. I had always taken her kindness for granted, become accustomed to being loved. I thought she'd never leave me. Only when she was truly gone did I wake up to the fact that I loved Joyce all along. But Joyce had left me. Andy had left too. He said he was going to a boarding school because he didn't want to be taken care of by anyone else. He said he could take care of himself. After Andy left, the once large house felt empty. It no longer resembled a home, it had lost its warmth. Joyce was ruthless, she didn't leave a single trace of her behind. Sometimes, I envy Andy. At least he gets to see his mom every week. He can still call her. But I can only drown my nerves in alcohol day after day. The memories of her flood my mind constantly, the way she used to be by my side. The regret, the guilt, the agony of knowing I missed so many chances. Every night, my heart aches. I met her so early, someone who loved me so deeply. I could have been happy. I was the one who ruined everything. As I looked at the only wedding photo we ever took, tears rolled down my face. Why couldn't the future me travel back 6 years to tell Chris not to hurt her, not to push her away, not to let her go? If I had another chance, I'd hold her hand tightly, never letting even death separate us. But there is no if. She's getting married. Just a few months ago, she was still my wife. My mind is in chaos. How did things turn out like this? I told Andy about his mom's upcoming wedding to Devon, hoping he'd feel the same pain as me. His mother had abandoned us. But Andy wasn't sad at all. He was happy for her. Mom is happy with Uncle Devon. I want her to be happy. Yes, even a child can see that she's happier with Devon. What right do I have to blame Joyce? I attended her wedding. The wedding I never had with her, Devon gave her. Andy volunteered to be the flower boy. The ceremony was grand, and I realized how beautiful she looked in her wedding dress. Wish you happiness, I said. Thank you, she replied with a radiant smile. She had moved on. As for me, I had missed my chance at happiness. I'll never be happy again. And that is my greatest punishment. End.